Back in the late 1980s, subwoofers could only handle a couple hundred watts. Even the highest end models from brands such as Pyle, MTX, Rockford Fosgate, Soundstream, and others, back then amplifier power was limited, so mostly you saw smaller magnets, stamped steel frames, etc. Excluding this Serwin Vega 18-inch sub, which could handle as much as 300 watts. That was big power back then. A true standout was this quad 15-inch box by Savard, the Challenger 1503, which was said to have unlimited power handling. In the 1987 Car Stereo Buyer's Guide from Stereo Review, there's an article which stated,
"A power race is currently underway among the esoterics, with such contenders as Rockford Fosgate, HiFonics, Acoustic, Linear Power, Orion, Alphasonic, and Soundstream. The current leader is Rockford Fosgate with its new Power 1000, a 4-channel bridgeable model rated at 1000 watts total power. HiFonics, not to be outdone, is planning a 600 watt per channel stereo amp."
Ironically, in this same issue, there was an advertisement showing off the 1200 watt Colossus amplifier by HiFonics. Also, in the amplifier directory, we could see the Colossus power amplifier here, 600 watts per channel at 4 ohms, 900 watts per channel at 2 ohms, $1,550 back then is $4,320 in 2024. The following year, 1988, it showed up at $1,600 into directories, and then 1989, it showed up as $1,800, which is equivalent to around $4,600 in 2024. Later, HiFonics had a really cool ad showing off 16 different amplifier models with the Colossus there on the very bottom. In this 1993 brochure from HiFonics, it mentions the first 600 watt per channel amp for automobiles still held as the most powerful amp in the world. On the Z Audio About Us page, it does talk about the Colossus, and it says in 1986 is when it was built. To the best of my knowledge, it wasn't commercially available until 1987. In this January 1991 Auto Sound and Security, we see this GMC minivan decked out with HiFonics amplifiers and lots of subwoofers. In fact, I'll show you the layout here, which includes 6 subwoofers per Colossus amplifier. They're all 15-inch, and they are the M&M Godfather series subwoofers. And this was just a crazy build, I believe, by Todd Zeyer, who's been around for quite a long time and done some amazing builds over the years. I also found some more pictures of HiFonics Colossus installed in vehicles. Sorry, I don't know who took these or who actually did the installs. If you know, please leave a comment below letting us know. Now, competition to the Colossus back then, the Power 1000 from Rockford Fosgate, the Orion 2350 GX, also the Gold Series version, the PPI 2300 AM or 2300M, also the Alpine 3545, and then later the Precision Power 2350 DM, and Earthquake with the PA 4300, which was later to be stated as the most powerful amplifier in the world. Back in March, April of 1989, Car Stereo Review, the Big Amp Test Part 3 had the Colossus Acoustic Amp 560 and a Rockford Power 1000. Of course, the Colossus was the most powerful 2-channel amp in that setup, still the most powerful 2-channel amp at the time, and they measured 552 watts times 2 at 4 ohms with 12 volts of input, 577 times 2 at 4 ohms dynamic power. Moving forward a couple years to October 1991, Car Audio and Electronics in their monster amps tested the HiFonics Colossus, Linear Power 8002, Orion GS 500, Precision Power 2350 DM, and the Rockford Fosgate Power 1000.
This is the largest amplifier in the group, and its power output is truly colossal. Actually, it is 2 separate 600-watt amplifiers in a single chassis. Each channel has its own power supply with its own set of power and ground wires. This double mono technique is used in some expensive home amplifiers to make sure that one channel sound will not be affected when the other channel is calling for a lot of power.
Overall, the Colossus came in 3rd overall, which is really not fair because Linear Power had 2 amps and the Rockford Fosgate was a 4-channel. They did measure 570 watts times 2 at 4 ohms, 790 times 2 at 2 ohms, and 1500 watts bridged at 4 ohms. The Colossus had many generations over the years: the Series 6, 86 to 89, Series 7, 90 to 92, Series 8, 93 to 95. There's actually later versions too, which we're not going to talk about. The main meat of this video is the Series 6 Colossus, which I have a custom one here that was completely redone, repainted, and everything by Sean King About 10 years ago when I received the amp, it was definitely beat up. It was the original black finish, so I kind of gave Sean free rein on the color combination, but also wanted it to work so that we could try it out on the amp dyno. Although the amp was somewhat custom, the speaker outputs binding posts are normal with these amps, although they looked a little different in the originals. Also, the diagnostic LEDs are typical of these amps. In addition to RCA inputs, some did not have the Tiffany style, some had regular. Also, it did have a single gain for both channels. Also had some custom end plates done by Old School Car Audio Restorations. Make sure you check them out. These look really cool. And as you can see here, the power and ground are definitely upgraded to 4 gauge. They're normally 8 gauge. These OFC wire, of course. There's a left amp and a right amp, and you'll see that later when we show the guts. And in the middle is a remote turn on to turn on the amps, and no blue pill is required.
This is not a Mickey Mouse program!
These Series 6 Colossus amplifiers didn't have any markings on the heatsink, so I didn't add any to mine. Speaking of heatsink, this is a long amplifier, especially for the time, at 29 inches by 9 inches by 2.3 inches. Millimeter equivalents are there as well. Ratings are 600 by 2 at 4 ohms, 900 by 2 at 2 ohms, 1200 watts bridged at 8 ohms, or 1800 watts bridged at 4 ohms. Now, I don't know, over the years, I've shown this amp several times on Instagram and Facebook, etc., and people have complained about me not doing the dyno test. So today is the day. Let's check out the power output in watts on the left, the ohm load in the middle, voltage dyno on the right. We'll also have the clamp so that we can calculate the amplifier's efficiency.
Now let's do this!
First up, we're going to try 8 ohms in the 2-channel mode. There are no ratings provided for 8 ohms. This is more of a home audio test, but I figure what the heck. 1 kilohertz tone. Certified test takes us to 1% distortion. And yeah, we're right at 300 watts per channel at 14.34, 299 and 285. Let's reset the dyno here for uncertified. Takes us up to clipping. And I think one of the things you'll notice here is this amp with its regulated power supply does not do more power uncertified up to clipping. As you can see, the 299, 286 at 14.32. Also dynamically, with a regulated power supply like this, it does not give a lot of dynamic power. Stephen Mantz at Z Audio has done lengthy discussions about why he thinks this is not important, so you can check that out if you want to read it. Now let's move on to 4 ohms 2 channel. It's rated 600 watts by 2, 11.5 to 16 volts. Certified test takes us up to 1% distortion. Can we get the 600 by 2? Oh, not quite. We're averaging about 560, 565 or so at 13.9. Uncertified up to clipping. Can we get 600 by 2? Hold your breath. Let it out, because we didn't quite get it. So close though, percentage-wise or dB-wise, we're right there at 600, but we didn't quite make it. What about dynamically? Can we get there dynamically? And afraid not. It's actually less power dynamically than it is in either one of the other tests. Again, this is not unheard of for these type of amplifiers. Now let's try the 2 ohm test. Rated 900 watts by 2. That doesn't sound like much power today, but this was massive power back in the late 1980s. And check this out. Certified to 1% distortion. Yo, it beat 900 watts. That's right, we busted about 965 watts per channel average up to 1% distortion. That is killer for this amplifier from the late 1980s. Uncertified to clipping, again, right about the same, about 965 or so watts per channel at 13.2 volts. What about dynamically? Can we possibly get over 1,000? Let's see. Look at that, we're close. Oh yeah, boy, check it out. 1,005 and 992 at 14.17. Awesome. Now, according to the HiFonics Series 6 manual, bridging the Colossus is left positive, right negative. Now, Sean warned me this amp did not appear to be bridgeable, and I found some information online that said the same thing. So that the 2 amplifier boards inside did not connect up. Not sure how it's bridgeable. That said, I connected the negative terminals together and used the left positive and right positive because we used a scope and determined that the one channel was out of phase. But the amp exuded some weird noise and it would not even really run the certified test at all. The uncertified test, it did run, but we didn't get quite the 1200 watts here, as you'll see at 8 ohms bridged. Got not too far off. Now, I plan to contact Stephen Mance, but didn't have a chance to do it before this video is going to be released. But I will contact him, and I'll leave the updated information below in the video description to find out if this amp really is bridgeable or if it's one of the early models with 2 separate boards that were not. We'll find out. But anyway, it actually did work. You can see here dynamically we got 1105 watts, 13.72. It's rated 1200. Then we went to 4 ohms where it's rated 1800, and based on the 2 ohm stereo test, we should have gotten over 1800, but you can see here we already have noise. It's already measuring 6 watts before we even get started, and it doesn't really even run the test. It just kind of, jumps up to 1100 watts, doesn't really run it at all. So uncertified to clipping, we tried it, and again, it's not counting cleanly. It's definitely got some noise. We got 1440, which is not far off from the 1500 that Car Audio and Electronics got back in the day. But again, I still think there's something going on here. It's like the power supplies were not synced together or something. That's just my assessment. I'm not a tech. I don't really know the inner workings of the amplifiers, but we did get over 1800 watts dynamically here at 40 hertz with 4 ohms bridged. And here are the results of all the tests that we performed. Efficiency included, which was interesting. Amplifier actually got more efficient the lower we got with ohm loads. We did 1 kilohertz on the 4-channel test and did 40 hertz on the bridge test. And next up was hook it up to some subwoofers and see how it sounds on the quad box. Let's try the woofer test with the Colossus on the quad box. For the test here on the subs, I did run the amp in the stereo mode because these quad box is 2 ohms per channel, which is perfect for the HiFonics Colossus. And you can see it pushed the subs well. It was an awesome amplifier back in the day and still awesome today. Next up, let's find out what's inside. There's actually 2 separate amps inside the heatsink. Here you can see the acrylic bottom that Sean put on the amp. It did not originally come with an acrylic bottom. And unfortunately, when I was trying to take off the acrylic bottom, I kind of broke it, but we can replace that. I had to take it off so we can get a better look at the internals, because when you leave the acrylic on, it gets all those reflections and you can't really see. So I took one for the team. Here you can see the amp on one side. This is the left amp, and then we'll show the amp on the right side. It's literally 2 separate boards, which include 4 16-volt 8200 microfarad caps there for the power supply, and the 3 stages of VariPower 35-volt, 63-volt, and 80-volt capacitors for this Class G operation, which is a variant of Class AB, but it uses multiple supply rails, variable voltages, rapidly switching when the audio signal wave has a peak value that is higher voltage than the level of the supply voltage. Well, there you have my test, my review, and history of the HiFonics Colossus, starting with the Series 6, which is the one we showed here. Please make sure you support me on patreon.com/oldschoolstereo if you like these videos. With YouTube AdSense, about $5 per 1,000 views is what I make. So on a video with 10,000 views, that's $50. It takes me anywhere between 15 and 30 hours to make each one of these videos. So as you can see, it's a lot of work and effort to get not a lot out just by the views. So I do greatly appreciate those who are able to support me. And don't forget, those who support have early access to all the videos. And for those who stuck around, we are going to show the Colossus Series 8. I borrowed one of these from a friend several years ago and never made the video. Not sure why. I also did not get a whole lot of photos or video clips of the amplifier itself. But here it is. You can see the Series 8 has these Utilink power plugs, which are the worst designs ever, only accept 8 gauge for power and ground. But anyway, the amp was redone by Sean King. You can see the exterior was done this black finish. Also, he redid the inside, recapped it, and things like that. So let's get it on the dyno. We'll try it certified here at 4 ohms, 1 kilohertz. It's rated 600 watts by 2, and we only got 500. So this one actually didn't do as good as the Series 6 that we showed of my amplifier. We got 500 watts on one channel, 513 on the other, in the mid 13s. Now we bridged the amplifier. This one did not have any issues with the bridging. Let's try it certified, 4 ohms, 1 kilohertz. Can we get the 1800 watts that the amplifier is rated? No, not quite. We got 1605 at 13.56. That was at 1 kilohertz. And as far as the clamp, we pulled 324.46. Till next time, this Big D, I'm out of here. Now, really interesting here is we did the certified bridge test at 40 hertz, and notice how much less power we got. 1262 watts versus 1600. That's a pretty big difference. 13.2, pulled right at 300 amps of current. But what about uncertified to 1 kilohertz? Let's see here and check this out. We actually did get the 1800. We got 1809 right at 13 volts. And then dynamic power using the 1 kilohertz burst track. Here you can see we get over 1900 watts, closing in on 2 kW. We got 1971 at 14.15, rated 1800 watts. So this one did its power, but it had to be at 1 kilohertz. Hope you guys enjoyed the 7 days of Amp Dyno test. Today is New Year's 2024. Hope you guys had a great one. Thanks as always for watching and supporting. I'm signing out. I'm going to take a little break, but I'll be back with more amp tests. Big D, I'm out.